Welcome to Confessions of a Terrible Leader, where real leaders share the raw truth about the lessons they learned the hard way so you don't have to. Join our host, Lacey Nelson, founder of Transcend Leadership Collective and former terrible leader. On this podcast, we invite you to step into the confessional and get real with the messy stories and behind-the-scenes reality of leadership. Let's get to it.
Hello, listeners, and welcome back to Confessions of a Terrible Leader. I'm your host and former terrible leader, Lacey Nelson. Thank you, Ronjini Joshua, for joining us today from the beautiful state of Hawaii. We're so glad that you are here. Ronjini is the CEO and founder of Silver Telegram and a public relations expert. And I have so many questions for you. Thank you. And it is early for you, so double thank you.
No worries. I'm happy to be here.
Are you based in Hawaii or are you vacationing in Hawaii?
No, I live here. I live in Maui. We moved after COVID. I realized that you could work from anywhere. And so why not?
Right? What a beautiful, beautiful place to choose to work from. Okay, so my first question is going to be probably a bigger question than I even know I'm asking, but I think a lot of us that are in business ownership, in leadership positions, we think we understand what PR is because it's a term that we've heard our whole lives. From the time we're tiny, I think we start hearing that phrase like, oh, it's the PR. Oh, we got to get the PR person. It's just in our lexicon as a society, but I don't think we actually know what it means.
I mean, I like to think people can get it, but that's just because I've been doing it for so long. PR is basically communications between any business person and then their external audience. It could be anybody. It could be their customer, a partner. It could be an investor. It could be your parents.
Yeah.
It's really just that communication. That's the PR part. Public relations is just being able to communicate effective messages between the brand or the person externally. And then sometimes even internally to your own employees. That internal PR is that too. So if you want to be really basic about it, that's what PR is. From a standpoint of industry PR, it's really building credibility, reputation, and trust through the things that you're communicating. It could be interviews with the media. It could be articles that you write. It could be a speech that you give, a press release, which most people associate with PR. It could be any of those different communication methods.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really that practice of building reputation, credibility, and trust so that people want to work with you or network with you or whatever your call to action is.
Absolutely. Okay. I love that. And I know that your expertise or your business really was founded around, and correct me if I'm wrong, but tech and helping tech companies, correct? With their PR.
Yeah, absolutely.
How did you get the tech companies to trust you? And how did you find yourself in this unique niche of work? I want to know how you got here.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for asking. I actually fell into tech. I thought I was going to be an entertainment PR person. I thought I was going to be a publicist, which thankfully I'm not because I don't think I would have fared well. I probably would have lost my mind by now. I got a degree in public relations actually. And then my first job out of college was at a small boutique PR agency that worked in tech. And the reason I had taken that job was because it paid more.
Mm-hmm.
You know, as a new grad, you want to get paid as much as you can.
Got bills to pay.
Yeah, entertainment PR does not pay well as a newcomer. So I was like, I'm not driving to Los Angeles, 100 miles every day just to get paid nothing. So
right.
I ended up going with the boutique firm, which was probably the best move I could make. And it was before the whole bubble burst, the Silicon Valley bubble burst. And I worked in wireless and telecom. So that was my first step into tech PR. I was working with wireless and telecom companies, people that were doing just really cool, new, innovative things in that space.
Yeah.
VoIP and all this old school tech stuff. And then eventually I had to, of course, move to Silicon Valley because what would you do if you were a tech PR person?
You had to go where the work is.
You go where the work is. So I broadened my experience there at a larger agency. I got to work with bigger companies, hardware companies. I eventually went into video games.
Okay.
I did some video game PR and then I missed Southern California and I was like, I know what I'm doing now. I'm going to go back to SoCal. They need me there.
Yeah.
Not really.
You needed you there.
I needed me there. Yes, absolutely. And so I went back there and I was working for a really big agency for a while. And I noticed this gap in service, which was basically large agencies. Traditionally, everybody knows this. They charge a lot of money.
Yeah, I've looked.
Yeah. we were getting a lot of small tech startups that I thought were like cool. They were doing cool stuff.
Yeah.
But they just didn't have the budget to cover a large agency fee. And
Right.
we were turning them away. They didn't get past the vetting process.
Right.
You know, I saw a lot of those come through because I was an account manager at that point or a director at that point. So I was helping vet some of these companies. And I was like, you know what? Somebody needs to do that work.
Yeah. There's a
I
gap
have
in the market.
experience. Yeah, I have the experience.
Yeah.
They're small clients, but as a freelancer, I could probably do that. So I got a couple of clients under my belt and I left and I just started freelancing. And so that's kind of how that whole working in tech, actually working tech startups specifically emerged. And then from there, once I got a lot of work, I started pulling in people. Kind of part of my leadership story is I didn't plan to have a PR agency. Probably one of the worst things you could do is not plan. And I just started building. I just started, okay, if I need somebody, I'm just bringing them in and
Built the plane while you were flying it. Yep.
exactly. It's a little scary to do that. And obviously I made quite a few mistakes, but I think that was kind of the start of us working in tech, us meaning Silver Telegram,
Yes.
working in tech, working with startups.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things I've learned about working with startups too that are a little challenging, but it was an underserved market. And at that time, it was 2011. I don't know how this happened, but we became one of the only agencies that really focused on startups. Also, we did a lot of crowdfunding. So Kickstarter was really popular at the time. We became known as a crowdfunding PR agency, which that was a whole different beast as well.
Yeah. I can only imagine.
Yeah. So we did that for a while too. We still do crowdfunding campaigns every once in a while, but they're different now, obviously.
Yeah.
That's kind of where everything came from. And I had an office at one point and had a bunch of employees. And then all of a sudden my employees were all over the place and I was alone in an office. This was way before COVID, 2018. And so I was like, why am I sitting in an office with a bunch of space paying rent?
Yep.
So I got rid of that and we became very, very remote. That was really cool because it gave me the opportunity to travel with my family and do work in a different kind of way. We've been doing a lot of startup stuff. We've had some big companies too that we've worked with, bigger brands, but we specialize in that small to medium sized business niche where
Nice.
people are just starting to get going,
Yeah.
helping them establish themselves.
How does an organization know that it's time to bring in PR? What are the things that you vet? How do you decide this is going to be right for this organization, this client at this time?
Yeah, the ideal client, and trust me, it took me a long time to cultivate this.
I bet it did.
The ideal client knows what they want to say to their target audiences.
Mm-hmm.
They have their messaging down. That's not to say that it changes, does, and we do workshops and we kind of work with that, but you have your core messaging, mission, values, and goals down. That has to be done. You have to have a website.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have a website. Make sure that's ready to go. You know what your sales channels are. You know how to scale. These are things that you need to answer for yourself before you get into PR. There are some things that you can do to set the foundation of PR while you're working on this, but to hire a PR agency, you've got to have those things. And then of course, you've got to have some money. PR doesn't have to be crazy expensive, but it's not cheap. You have to invest in it.
It's an investment.
Long-term investment. Yeah, because you're building reputation. How can you do that in a month? You can't do that. It's impossible. You could chip away at little things. It just doesn't work in a short-term way. You have to be willing, I would say, to spend at least 6 months to a year doing a solid PR strategy, if not more, ongoing. And that means you could start small and then grow. There's a lot of ways you can do that to make it more affordable. But I think those are the three main things: having your messaging and vision down, knowing what you want to say, having an established website, and then having some money put aside.
So those of us that are feeling like, I think I'm getting close to this, where this could be beneficial, what is a budget range for us as consumers to think about? I'm sure it can go as high as you want it to, but what is like a minimum? You need to have at least X amount ready to invest in this, or it's really not going to work for you the way you want it to.
I say if you're looking to really establish yourself and move the needle, I would say you could probably, across different agencies, not just ours, you might have some good options if you have at least $3,000 a month to spend.
Good to know. That is really helpful to wrap our
I think
heads
that would
around
be a solid estimate. Now, there's a lot of different things you can do in projects and, but I would say that would be pretty conservative estimate of what you can start with.
Okay. Good to know. The way that organizations have to keep up, the way we have to keep up with the change in what we deliver around technology and how fast trends change, I imagine that's accelerated for you in some ways. How do you even stay on top of the best ways to connect? We have AI happening. What is the future of PR as things are moving so fast?
That's such a good question. And it's not just PR because it's all the communications. It's marketing, PR, sales.
All the channels, everything.
It's really tough. And I think at the very beginning, I'm old school. So I was a little resistant. I was like, I'm not doing it. But I think as I've embraced AI a little more and some of the new tools, you really have to, especially as a leader, make sure you're open to learning new things or trying new ways of doing things, even if they don't work.
Right.
That's the whole idea, is keep your mind open. I feel like now I've lost time because I was a little resistant because I was like, is this thing going to stick? Are we really going in this direction? I was like, I don't want to jump on board if
Right. Right.
Obviously AI is not one of those things. It's a road you kind of just have to go through.
Yeah. Like the internet, it's not going anywhere.
The same with tools. You have to trial and error. So there is that time you have to set aside to make sure that you have that learning component still functioning in your brain as a leader, or when the tides are shifting so quickly, you have to try to jump on the next big thing. And it's hard to keep up.
Yeah.
You just have to be open into what your customers are looking for too. What is it that people are asking you for? Are you listening to that? Instead of saying, no, I don't do that, figure out how you can do that thing. Or if it makes sense and it aligns with what you do as a company. You know, for us, there was a social media boom, obviously, at some point. And that was one of the things that I had to consider. Are we doing social media?
Yeah.
Because as a PR agency, reputation and social media are very closely aligned. And we do advise on a lot of social media content, things like that. But I realized, no, we're not a social media agency. That's going to end up being its own thing. But there's times where people have asked us to pull together content and do that. And then we've had to find a partner that can help us include that, but it's not us.
Right.
So that's the other thing, is just making sure you stay focused on the thing that you're good at.
Yes.
Because if you start doing all these other things, like I absolutely say, I do not do email marketing. That is not my jam. I am not a salesperson. I will be the first to admit that. So that social media piece, the email marketing piece, I don't do that. But look, I have a partner that can jump in and I can make it easier for you. I can facilitate that. But I had to make that focused decision that we're not going to do that. There are some agencies that do all of that, and that's up to them. That's their line of thought. But for me, that wasn't a good fit. You have to really be open to new things, but then also think, does it fit with your brand? Does it fit with where you want to go? And keep learning, I think, all the time.
Yes. Knowing what to say no to is as important as knowing what to say yes to, if not more, right? Because every yes to one thing is a no to something else, and be very intentional about what that is, because we have limited time, money, resources, energy, bandwidth, mental capacity. It is exhausting. There's so many pieces that we're juggling all the time.
All the time. And that's just work life, right? It's like,
yeah. Having that extreme clarity is so valuable. Do you find being an expert in communication internally with your own team, do you still find yourself having gaps in clarity? Or are you like, no, that's actually one thing internally I can be really good at? I'm just curious how that transfers.
That's a great question. I think I'm pretty open to trying new things. Sometimes I had to check myself and be like, okay, well, maybe that is the better approach, or maybe that isn't. So yeah, I do think I find gaps, especially with like a new wave of people coming in. I'm not a spring chicken. So
yeah, me either.
You know, I've been doing this for such a long time. You don't want to get stuck in your ways. And that's, I think, the biggest challenging thing about communications practices. It's not just about being an expert because you've done it for a long time, because that could sometimes hold you back.
Yeah.
It's really about being flexible and nimble. And I think working with startups has actually helped me do that, because I come up with a lot of different challenges that big companies just don't have. And they still have a lot of bureaucracy and politics. Startups, they want to make decisions right away. They want really creative ideas. And so, yeah, there's a lot of times where I had to like kind of break my own barriers and be like, okay, we have to think outside the box. Let's do it differently. And I did get into probably a pattern at one point, like, okay, we're just doing this every time, right?
Yeah.
Then I realized, well, actually, you have to change it up to be creative. And we are in a creative practice. Public relations is not something that is just like some kind of standard issue. You have to be creative with each one.
You can't template.
It's hard. It's very hard to
Yeah.
template. Yes. Yes.
We asked what you look for in a client. What should a client look for? How should I decide if this is a right firm for me to go with to help us get the word out there? And also, what are the red flags? Like, if you see this, do not sign them. Do not sign with them.
Yes, absolutely. The vetting process for a person who's looking for PR should be their experience. What kind of background do they have? Because there's PR for every industry. So we're specifically in tech. I work with a lot of startups. I've done consumer products like audio, kids' toys, STEM, and then I've done a lot of SaaS and enterprise. I do a lot around robotics and AI. These are the areas that I know, okay, I've got this background and experience. Now, it's not required that they have to have your competitor as a client, but some kind of ancillary experience in that particular area. Each PR agency has their kind of specialty, and I think that's something really, really important to look for.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is obviously if they fit your budget. One red flag that I think people don't pay attention to is, does the PR agency, can they have ideas for you at the start? I can pretty much have ideas at the end of the first phone call for someone, or I can go back and forth with them on having the beginning of some ideas.
Right.
A lot of PR agencies I've seen, they ask you to tell them what you want. But in my opinion, you're hiring an expert in PR. You want to hear what they would do for you because they're an expert in PR. You want to hear their ideas.
Right.
How do they think they can move the needle for you? What are the ideas that they can come up with?
Right.
If the PR agency is just regurgitating what you're saying, that's usually a red flag. Make sure they're coming up with some original ideas and thought behind what they're offering you. And saying like, hey, I think you should do this because of this. This would be a really good fit for you. If they're not organically, and maybe that's just my high expectation, but if they're not organically coming up with these ideas pretty quickly, I would say.
In the conversation, it's just
during the conversation, have something.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be well thought out. Even sometimes I say, hey, off the cuff, I'm thinking maybe we could do this. It doesn't have to be well thought out, but if they're not having that kind of jive with you, they may not know what you do or what you're talking about.
Yeah.
You want to know that that PR person can digest what you're saying and have some kind of feedback.
Such good advice. Yes.
Even if you have to think about it and then come back to them with a better plan, it's just have something, have some kind of spark.
Absolutely.
PR is like dating. You have to have a connection with them. If you don't have a connection with them personally and in your conversation, you're not going to communicate with them regularly. And that's what PR people need. We need collaboration between the client to do the best job possible.
There's a lot of parallels between our work. We are a leadership expertise firm. We go in and we help the people in the organizations to really identify leadership gaps. And I see that so clearly, the parallel of oftentimes our clients will come and it's like when you go to the doctor and you tell them what you want them to prescribe you.
Exactly.
You've Dr. Googled yourself and you're like, I'm definitely sure I have this and I need this drug. Thank you.
Yeah.
So
that's an absolutely good parallel. Yeah, absolutely.
We get the same kind of thing where they're like, this is how we want you to come in and do ABC. And we immediately have to redirect the conversation to, why don't you tell us the outcome you want?
Exactly.
And so a great PR firm should be able to, in the first conversation, be directing you towards, no, you tell us the outcome, and then we're going to give you some ideas about how to get there, because that is what we know how to do.
There are PR agencies for those other people too.
Yeah. Yes.
Silver Telegram is not that place. But there are PR agencies for those other people who they know what they want. They just want someone to execute. Hire a freelancer. They'll do that.
Yeah, they're probably spending more money than they need to. If they really are committed, they can just pay someone to do the work. What you're paying for is the knowledge, right?
And the strategy, the knowledge. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. When did you start Silver Telegram? What year?
2011.
Okay. You have been at this a while.
Yeah.
I'm guessing you have made some spectacular mistakes along the way in your leadership journey. And it is that time in the interview where we invite you into the confessional to share a misstep, a learning opportunity, however you'd like to phrase it, where you look back and you go, I would not do that way again? It had an impact in the way that you lead now.
Yeah.
Would you be so kind to share your story with us?
I feel like I need some music for this.
I know, you're the second guest that said that in the last couple days. We're on to something.
Like a dun dun dun.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, absolutely. I want to say a majority of my mistakes were more business driven because I didn't plan to start a business. But
Right.
aside from that, leadership mistakes, when I first hired my first person, it was somebody I had worked with before, somebody who knew me and somebody who knew the way I worked because they actually worked under me. I was actually their boss at a different job before.
Okay.
And so he knew how to handle me and like how to work with me. And what was very interesting was every person I brought in, they were so different. It's like having children. Every child is different, right?
So different. What works with one is not going to work with the other one.
Absolutely not. And so expecting people to know your flow and understand and even be proactive enough to pick it up on their own. That's not what people often take jobs to do. They take a job because they're like, oh, I have these skills and I'm just going to apply them and do it in the way that I know.
Right.
And I think my biggest failure was probably not having a very solid training program in place of the way we do things. The silver telegram way. Still something I work on all the time is having that training program where they understand, okay, yes, this is how everybody else does it, but this is how we do it because it also differentiates the way we serve clients and the way I want clients to see us. And people, they don't have a tap into my brain. And a lot of people are afraid to ask questions, especially when you have a new job. They're not trying to act like they don't know anything.
Right.
They want to feel confident.
And they don't have psychological safety yet. They're testing the waters.
Exactly. So you really, I think as a leader need to one, make them feel like you're there for them, that you're there to support them. And so I always try to say, hey, I'm here for questions. I'm here for whatever you need. Even if I'm not the person, I'll send you to the right person to make sure you get that answered. I think that solid training plan is very important. And a part of that, what I found that came out of me implementing more training is I got to find where people's strengths were. And so I started just putting people where their strengths were. I would ask them questions. I would say, hey, what do you feel most comfortable doing? What would you like to try? And what do you hate doing? Don't give someone a job they hate.
Right.
Or something that they feel like they're going to fail at because they will. They will fail. And you know what you're going to do? You're going to blame them. And then it's going to be a bad thing. And it's actually your fault as the leader to not identify their strengths early on. They could say whatever they want in their resume. I mean, they're just trying to get the job. We all do it. We all do
And the interview.
Right. Exactly.
A person very skilled at interviewing is going to hit all the right bells and whistles for you, but the job just started once you get them on board.
Exactly.
I love you sharing that. And I think it's a really common misstep that a lot of us make. One of the things that I hear that makes me just cringe every time I hear it is if you just hire the right people and get out of their way, then you're done.
No.
I'm like, nope. So that is not how it works. Yeah.
And I think I've had to also, in that same vein, learning all those things, I've had to be more flexible in the types of people that I hire because I realize everyone has their own strengths and you really have to know that you're going to take some time with everybody.
Yes.
You cannot assume that they're going to hit the ground running like they say in the interview.
Right. No, they're not. Because they don't know the silver telegram way. So you got to teach them the way.
Got to teach them the way. Yeah.
Recognize that it takes at least a year to really truly onboard someone. You're not done after they filled out all their paperwork, which is what we call onboarding in a lot of organizations. Like, oh, they're onboarded. No, they're not.
Yeah.
They just filled out their paperwork. And it is going to take about a year to even have them really have their feet under them to understand what the job is.
Yeah. And to learn the nuances of each person.
Yes.
It's not about just learning the job, but how to work with their colleagues.
Yes.
And then I've had to from this whole thing is just okay, who do I pair people with? I pair them with people that are like each other or that they can understand how to work with those people.
Their working styles are going to mesh.
Yes.
Or they're going to be complementary.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's a huge thing. I mean, you want to set them up for success. And when you're setting them up for success, then you're more successful, less stressed, and things flow a little bit better, you know? And it's not always going to be a winning recipe, but you've got to break some eggs, I guess.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. What a great share and insights you have given us today, Ronjini. This has been an absolutely amazing conversation. I've learned so much in such a short window. Thank you for taking the time in the early morning to talk with us today. Where can people find you? They want to learn more about what you do. Give us all the links. We will drop them in the show notes. But what's the best place to make a connection?
I'm pretty much everywhere. If you Google my name, you'll find me, but LinkedIn is really easy and I usually review it. So if you drop me a note that doesn't sound like it's a SEO company, PPC or lead gen, then, please send me a note. Say you heard this podcast. And that way I know where you came from, or email ronjini@thesilvertelegram.com. Pretty easy. But yeah, LinkedIn, I monitor that pretty often.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time today, your expertise. I really enjoyed this conversation. I just could talk to you for another hour at least. So thank you.
Yes.
And listeners, you know the drill. Until next time, go manage like a leader.
Thanks for listening to Confessions of a Terrible Leader. If you're feeling brave and have your own terrible leader story that you'd like to share, head over to transcendleadershipcollective.com/podcast to fill out a guest application. We'd love to hear from you. Confessions of a Terrible Leader is hosted by Lacey Nelson and produced and edited by Fixation Point Productions. Music is by Leif Olson and Mary Scott from the band The Number of Months. Confessions of a Terrible Leader is a free leadership resource offered by Transcend Leadership Collective. If you are ready to refuse the limits of average leadership and join the leadership revolution, visit transcendleadershipcollective.com to check out our offerings for engaging workshops, strategic planning, and more. Thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave us a review. And until next time, go manage like a leader.